The first fortress to fall had defended the galaxy for over 8 centuries. It had survived civil wars, pirate armadas, supernova shockwaves, and every major conflict recorded by the Galactic Coalition. Entire generations believed its walls would outlive the stars themselves. It lasted 17 minutes. Admiral Karan watched the final transmission in absolute silence. Thousands of defense platforms fired without pause, bathing space in rivers of plasma and coherent light. Battleships unleashed antimatter salvos powerful enough to split moons. Orbital shields shimmered like miniature suns as they absorbed impacts that would have shattered continents. None of it mattered. The enemy never slowed. Dark biological vessels drifted through the bombardment, as though destruction meant nothing to them. Every ship that was crippled simply broke apart, feeding nearby vessels with its own organic mass. Losses strengthened the swarm instead of weakening it. The fortress disappeared beneath an endless tide of living warships. Communications ended with static. Then, nothing. Another civilization's greatest symbol vanished from every navigation chart. The silence aboard Coalition Command was heavier than grief. No one spoke because everyone already knew the truth. The fortress had not been defeated. It had been erased. Within hours, emergency channels overflowed. One colony after another transmitted evacuation orders before abruptly going dark. Military frequencies dissolved into desperate pleas for reinforcements that no longer existed. Civilian broadcasts showed families abandoning cities that had stood for thousands of years. Governments declared martial law. Religious leaders proclaimed the end of history. Entire populations fled into deep space with no destination beyond survival. Admiral Karan had spent nearly 2 centuries commanding fleets across known space. He had witnessed planetary rebellions, stellar catastrophes, and wars that consumed dozens of systems. Nothing resembled this. Wars had rules. Wars exhausted resources. Wars required victories. The enemy recognized none of those concepts. They never occupied conquered worlds. They harvested them. Every planet left behind became a lifeless sphere stripped of forests, oceans, animals, bacteria, even microscopic traces of organic material. Cities remained perfectly intact. Roads still connected silent buildings. Power grids continued operating for years without anyone left alive to use them. The galaxy called them ghost worlds. Not because spirits haunted them. Because absolutely nothing else did. Coalition scientists searched endlessly for patterns. They found only horror. The invaders consumed every form of biological matter to expand their own numbers. Population increased after every conquest. Fleet strength multiplied with every victory. Every battle fought against them made the next battle harder. Entire military doctrines collapsed overnight. The coalition responded exactly as every great civilization believed it should. They united. Ancient rivals combined fleets. Economic competitors shared technology. Species that had hated one another for millennia suddenly fought side by side. For the first time in recorded history, nearly every advanced civilization stood beneath one banner. Hope lasted less than a month. The first Grand Fleet entered the Tauran corridor with over 12,000 warships. Only 83 returned. The Second Grand Fleet deployed experimental quantum weapons capable of collapsing space around enemy formations. The swarm adapted within hours. The Third Grand Fleet attempted coordinated strikes across 17 systems simultaneously. The swarm anticipated every movement. Each defeat carried the same terrible lesson. No matter what strategy the coalition invented, the enemy learned faster. Military academies emptied as professors admitted centuries of tactical knowledge had become useless. Factories worked without pause, replacing ships faster than crews could be trained. Entire economies abandoned civilian production. Luxury goods disappeared. Universities closed. Children learned evacuation procedures before mathematics. Every civilization transformed into a war machine. It still wasn't enough. Then came the collapse of the Valoran Republic. One of the wealthiest and most technologically advanced powers in known space surrendered before the enemy even entered their territory. They transmitted unconditional capitulation across every coalition frequency. They offered resources. Ships. Planets. Labor. Anything. The swarm ignored every word. 3 days later, the Republic no longer existed. After that, more governments surrendered before battles began. Not because they believed surrender would save them. Because fear had finally replaced hope. Inside the coalition assembly, thousands of representatives filled the circular chamber. Normally the room echoed with arguments over trade routes, political alliances, or territorial disputes. Today, no one argued. Projected above the center platform floated a map of known space. Every hour another star changed color. Blue became red. Safe became lost. Someone quietly calculated the rate of expansion. If nothing changed, the swarm would consume the entire galaxy within 9 standard years. Silence lingered until an elderly strategist rose from his seat. His voice carried none of the confidence expected from a veteran. "We have exhausted every conventional option." No one challenged him. Because everyone knew he was correct. Another representative suggested negotiating. The proposal died immediately. Attempts at communication had already failed hundreds of times. The swarm never answered. Another proposed constructing defensive megastructures around populated sectors. Engineers estimated completion in 63 years. They had 9. Someone proposed fleeing beyond explored space. Astrophysicists explained there wasn't enough time. One by one, every solution collapsed beneath simple mathematics. Finally, from the outer ranks, a young diplomat stood. He had served less than 4 years. Most of the chamber barely recognized him. His nervous voice echoed through the hall. "There is still one civilization that has not committed its military." The chamber looked toward him. He swallowed. Earth. The reaction shocked him. No applause. No relief. No discussion. Only absolute silence. Several delegates visibly stiffened. Others lowered their eyes. One ambassador quietly deactivated his translator as though refusing even to hear the word again. The diplomat frowned. "Why haven't we asked humanity?" Still, no answer. Finally Admiral Karan spoke. "They were never invited." The young diplomat blinked. "Why?" Before Karan could answer, an elder counselor slowly rose. His species had existed before humanity discovered electricity. His voice trembled with age. "There are laws." The diplomat searched the official database. "I've reviewed every coalition statute. None prohibit recruiting humans." The elder nodded. "Not written laws." He paused. "Older ones?" Confusion spread across the chamber. The elder continued. "Every civilization eventually learns them." He looked directly at the young diplomat. "The first." He took a slow breath. "Never place humanity in command during a galactic war." The diplomat frowned. "Why?" No answer came immediately. Instead, another elder finished the warning. "The second. Never remove humanity's restrictions." Again, the inevitable question followed. "Why?" Admiral Karan answered this time. "Because humans define victory differently." The room remained silent. The diplomat looked around in disbelief. "They're only one civilization." "No," Karan corrected quietly. "They are one civilization that fights differently." The diplomat pressed again. "If they're capable of stopping this enemy, why hesitate?" An elderly fleet marshal closed his eyes before speaking. "Because once humanity begins an existential war, they do not stop when the enemy surrenders." No one argued. No one dismissed the statement. Too many veterans carried memories they refused to discuss. The diplomat stared at faces filled not with hatred toward humanity, but fear. Not fear of betrayal. Fear of necessity. The projected map changed again. 3 more systems disappeared. Another refugee convoy ceased transmitting. Another civilization joined the list of the dead. The chamber finally accepted what pride had prevented until now. Every alternative had failed. Every calculation reached the same conclusion. Humanity was no longer one option among many. It was the only option remaining. Admiral Karan stood and looked around the chamber. If we contact Earth... He deliberately let the sentence hang. There will be no returning to the old galaxy. No objections followed. Only reluctant acceptance. One by one, representatives cast their votes. Approval spread slowly across the chamber, until every light glowed green. The decision became unanimous. For the first time in coalition history, humanity would be asked to fight. As preparations began for the diplomatic mission, Admiral Karan remained staring at the shrinking map of civilized space. He wondered whether history would remember this day as the moment the galaxy was saved, or the moment it unleashed something far more terrifying than the swarm itself. No one aboard the departing delegation celebrated. They carried no speeches, no promises, only desperation. They prayed humanity would agree to save them. None of them dared ask what that salvation would cost. The diplomatic convoy entered Earth's solar system expecting panic. Instead, they found preparation. Orbital traffic flowed with mechanical precision. Military formations moved silently between planetary defenses without wasting a single maneuver. Massive shipyards surrounded Earth, Luna, Mars, and dozens of orbital habitats, producing warships at a pace no coalition intelligence report had ever documented. No victory parades. No emergency broadcasts. No signs of fear. Only disciplined efficiency. Admiral Karan immediately understood one unsettling fact. Humanity had known the war was coming. The delegation was escorted beneath a mountain range into a command complex that stretched farther than scanners could measure. There were no ceremonial halls, no monuments honoring ancient victories, and no banners celebrating military glory. Every corridor served a purpose. Every room processed information. Thousands of officers, analysts, engineers, and artificial intelligences worked together in complete silence, interrupted only by brief confirmations and updated calculations. No one appeared surprised by the coalition's arrival. A human officer greeted the delegation with professional courtesy. "We've been expecting you." Karan exchanged a glance with the other ambassadors. No invitation had been sent before that morning. Yet humanity had prepared for them long before their ships crossed coalition space. The delegates entered a circular briefing chamber dominated by a holographic projection of the galaxy. Unlike coalition maps, this one wasn't marked by political borders. It displayed logistics, resource flows, industrial capacity, fuel consumption, enemy movement probabilities, supply vulnerabilities, projected casualty curves. Every known swarm advance appeared months into the future. Human predictions matched coalition records with terrifying accuracy. Then the display expanded. New routes appeared. Future invasions. Likely targets. Estimated arrival dates. The coalition officers stared in disbelief. Those attacks had not happened yet. One ambassador finally broke the silence. "How long have you been studying this?" A gray-haired strategist answered without looking away from the display. "Since your first frontier colony disappeared." Karan frowned. "That was nearly 6 years ago." The strategist nodded. "We considered intervention. Why didn't you?" The answer came instantly. Nobody asked? No bitterness. No accusation. Only a statement of fact. The room became uncomfortable. Another analyst stepped forward and began listing facts the coalition itself had only recently discovered. Enemy biomass conversion efficiency. Average fleet regeneration rates. Preferred expansion vectors. Communication latency. Adaptive mutation cycles. Estimated production limits. Hidden weaknesses. Every figure matched classified coalition intelligence. Some exceeded it. The delegates slowly realized humanity possessed a more complete understanding of the swarm than the civilizations currently fighting it. A scientist enlarged one region of space. "We believe their expansion is constrained by biological processing speed." Another continued. "They're consuming territory too quickly." A third added. "The larger they become, the more predictable the logistical requirements. Karen stared at the calculations. You've solved their operational model. The human simply replied. We solved it 3 months ago. Silence settled over the chamber. Everything the coalition had sacrificed to learn, humanity had already known. The Supreme Commander finally entered. No dramatic announcement accompanied the arrival. Every officer simply continued working. The commander looked at the alien delegation. We received your request. Karen stepped forward. The coalition asks Earth to join the war. The commander remained expressionless. We will. Relief swept through the delegation. It lasted only seconds. There is one condition. The room became silent. You will transfer complete military authority to Earth. Several ambassadors frowned. The commander continued before anyone could interrupt. Every coalition fleet, every logistics network, every industrial reserve, every intelligence asset, every strategic decision, every military order, everything. No exceptions. One diplomat immediately objected. You're asking us to surrender control of the largest alliance in history. No. The commander corrected calmly. I'm asking whether you want to survive. The ambassador stiffened. There must be oversight. There will not. Ethical review? No. Joint command? No. Emergency veto? No. Each answer arrived without hesitation. Karen understood why the ancient warnings existed. Humanity would accept responsibility. Nothing less. The commander looked around the room. If politicians direct this war, you lose. If committees direct this war, you lose. If public opinion directs this war, you lose. He paused. If you want victory, you stop giving orders. The delegates requested private consultation. Hours passed. Arguments echoed across secure communication channels linking every surviving government. Many leaders refused. Others demanded compromise. Several threatened to continue fighting alone. Military analysts calculated the odds. Without humanity, extinction remained mathematically certain. With humanity, survival became possible. Eventually, every civilization reached the same reluctant conclusion. Authority transferred. The coalition dissolved its independent command structure. Earth assumed control. The documents were signed. History changed. The commander read the final authorization. Then he issued his first order. Retreat. Confusion spread immediately. Every coalition fleet received identical instructions. Withdraw from forward systems. Abandon exposed colonies. Destroy supply depots before evacuation. Leave fortified sectors. Fall back. Again and again. Fall back. Panic erupted throughout coalition leadership. Entire worlds protested. Governors demanded explanations. Military officers refused to believe what they were reading. For decades they had sacrificed everything defending every inhabited planet. Now humanity was ordering them to surrender hundreds of systems without resistance. Karen confronted the commander. We're abandoning billions. We're evacuating billions. The commander corrected. We're sacrificing territory. Yes. The single word unsettled every alien present. A coalition general slammed his hand against the briefing table. This is cowardice. The human officers didn't react. The commander calmly displayed another projection. The swarm's advance shifted as human retreat orders were implemented. Enemy fleets accelerated. Supply lines stretched farther. Biological processing hubs became increasingly isolated. Communication delays expanded. The swarm celebrated what appeared to be effortless victories. The commander finally spoke. They believe we're desperate. A strategist continued. We want them confident. Another officer enlarged the map. Every retreat redirected enemy movement toward a massive region near the galactic center. Hundreds of abandoned systems formed an enormous corridor. Karen narrowed his eyes. This wasn't random. No. It was planned. The commander nodded. Every withdrawal shapes enemy behavior. One ambassador whispered, "You're hurting them." The commander answered with complete certainty, "Exactly." Another display appeared. Invisible lines connected dozens of supposedly abandoned star systems. Supply caches hidden inside asteroid fields. Stealth listening posts. Automated drone factories buried within dead moons. Sensor arrays disguised as debris. Nothing had been abandoned. Everything had been prepared years earlier. The coalition hadn't been retreating. It had been constructing a battlefield the enemy couldn't recognize. Karen slowly understood the scale. Humanity wasn't responding to the invasion. Humanity was redesigning the entire war. Every lost system increased the swarm's confidence. Every apparent victory carried them deeper into a route they believed they had discovered themselves. They were choosing exactly the path humanity wanted. One frightened ambassador asked the obvious question, "Where does the corridor end?" The commander looked toward the galactic map. His answer contained neither pride nor emotion. "Where we decide the war ends." No one spoke. The silence wasn't born from doubt anymore. It came from realization. The coalition had spent years reacting to the swarm. Humans had no intention of reacting. They intended to dictate every remaining move the enemy would make. Reports soon confirmed the strategy was working. The swarm accelerated into abandoned sectors exactly as predicted. Its formations became denser. Its logistics expanded beyond efficient limits. Reserve biomass concentrated inside the growing corridor. Every adaptation made the trap larger. Every conquest tightened it. Coalition officers watched prediction after prediction become reality. Nothing was accidental. Nothing was improvised. For the first time since the invasion began, Admiral Karen felt something unfamiliar. Not hope. Certainty. He finally understood why humanity had demanded absolute authority before firing a single shot. The war they intended to fight could never have survived compromise. As the latest intelligence update arrived, human analysts quietly acknowledged it before returning to work. The swarm had crossed another invisible boundary. Exactly on schedule. One strategist looked toward the commander and simply said, "They're committed." The commander gave a single nod. "Good. They're finally standing where we want them." 3 days after the swarm entered the final sector of the corridor, every human fleet disappeared from coalition tracking systems. Alien commanders believed their sensors had failed. They hadn't. Humanity had simply stopped allowing itself to be seen. The swarm advanced without hesitation. It interpreted the silence as another retreat. Its formations compressed as billions of biological warships poured deeper into the carefully prepared region of space. Every projection inside Earth's command network updated in real time. Every enemy movement matched the predicted models. The corridor was no longer a battlefield. It had become a sealed chamber. The commander gave one order. "Begin Operation Leviathan." Across hundreds of star systems, dormant installations awakened simultaneously. Asteroids drifting unnoticed for decades opened like mechanical flowers, revealing weapon platforms hidden beneath layers of natural rock. Dead moons activated fusion cores that had remained cold for generations. Artificial satellites disguised as ordinary debris synchronized through quantum communication networks. Entire constellations shifted position. Nothing had been placed there during the war. Everything had existed long before the invasion began. Humanity had spent decades preparing for an enemy no one else believed would ever arrive. The coalition watched in stunned silence. What they had considered empty space had always been a fortress. The first attack never targeted a ship. It targeted information. Millions of invisible quantum transmitters flooded enemy communication channels with perfectly crafted false signals. Entire swarm formations received contradictory orders. Navigation references changed. Fleet identifications became corrupted. Long-range synchronization collapsed. The biological intelligence controlling the invasion attempted to reconnect its scattered forces. Every correction created another error. Every recovered signal carried hidden human code. The swarm could no longer distinguish truth from deception. Then came the ghost fleets. Coalition observers watched enormous human armadas appear across hundreds of systems simultaneously. The swarm immediately redirected vast numbers of warships to intercept them. Hours later, those fleets simply vanished. They had never existed. They were nothing more than carefully engineered sensor illusions supported by hacked enemy communications. The swarm spent precious time and resources chasing opponents that had never been there. Every diversion separated another section of the invasion from the main force. Every separation weakened the whole. Human artificial intelligences continued feeding the enemy believable victories. False reports claimed coalition supply depots had been discovered. Imaginary civilian evacuations appeared across communication networks. Entire sectors seemed vulnerable. The swarm followed every opportunity. Each one carried it exactly where humanity wanted. Admiral Karan slowly realized the enemy had stopped making independent decisions. Without understanding it, the swarm had begun obeying human strategy. The commander finally authorized the second phase. Space itself erupted. The largest railgun ever constructed fired from behind a dwarf planet. Its projectile accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed before crossing interstellar distances in minutes. No explosion followed. There didn't need to be one. The projectile simply passed through the leading swarm fleet. Hundreds of biological warships disappeared instantly. The remaining vessels shattered beneath the debris, traveling almost as fast as the original impact. Before coalition officers could comprehend what they had witnessed, another railgun fired. Then another. Then dozens more. Asteroids the size of cities transformed into relativistic weapons. Each strike erased entire formations. The swarm attempted evasive maneuvers. Human predictions had already accounted for them. Every escape route intersected another calculated firing solution. There was nowhere safe to move. Then gravity itself became a weapon. Artificial singularity generators activated across key systems. Temporary black holes distorted space around concentrated enemy fleets. Thousands of ships were pulled from formation. Some collided with one another. Others stretched apart under impossible gravitational forces before disappearing forever. The swarm had evolved to survive almost every conventional weapon. It had never evolved to fight physics itself. While the enemy struggled to recover, another human system activated. Hidden factories buried inside hollow asteroids released billions of autonomous hunter drones. Each machine carried only one objective: locate, pursue, destroy. The drones required no communication, no centralized command, no fear. If one was destroyed, another immediately adjusted. If 1,000 were lost, another million continued. The swarm found itself hunted by machines that adapted almost as quickly as it did. Every attempt to regenerate became another opportunity for the drones to identify fresh biological signatures. Escape became mathematically impossible. Coalition fleets received orders to maintain distance. Not because humanity required assistance. Because they required clear firing lanes. The commander refused to waste allied lives where machines could accomplish the task more efficiently. Entire solar systems transformed into weapons. Stars released controlled bursts of energy after decades of hidden engineering. Planetary defense grids unfolded far beyond planetary orbit, creating overlapping kill zones measured in astronomical units. Gas giants concealed missile platforms capable of launching millions of autonomous warheads every minute. Nothing had been built for defense alone. Everything had been designed for annihilation. Karan watched human officers directing operations. No one celebrated successful attacks. No cheers followed massive victories. Casualty reports were acknowledged with brief confirmations before attention returned to the next calculation. The destruction of billions produced no excitement. Only progress. A coalition captain quietly whispered, "How can they remain so calm?" Karan answered without taking his eyes off the tactical display. "Because they decided the outcome long before the first shot." The swarm attempted one final adaptation. Instead of advancing together, it fragmented into countless independent fleets. Against every previous opponent, decentralization had guaranteed survival. Against humanity, it accelerated destruction. Separated formations lost the protection of shared biomass. Communication delays increased further. Hidden weapon platforms isolated and eliminated each group before reinforcements could arrive. One by one, sectors stopped transmitting enemy activity. Human predictions updated continuously. Expected resistance. Actual resistance. Revised elimination time. The difference rarely exceeded 2%. Coalition analysts could scarcely believe what they were seeing. The greatest military threat in galactic history had become completely predictable. Then the biological command network collapsed. For the first time since the invasion began, intercepted enemy signals no longer carried coordinated instructions. Instead, they carried confusion. Repeated requests for guidance. Contradictory movement patterns. Emergency resource allocations. Entire hive clusters asking why neighboring fleets had vanished. The swarm had never experienced uncertainty. Now uncertainty spread faster than any human weapon. Human psychological warfare divisions intensified the pressure. Captured communication protocols transmitted fabricated reports claiming key hive leaders had abandoned the conflict. Other messages warned of invisible superweapons approaching from impossible directions. Every false report exploited the enemy's growing inability to verify information. Distrust spread through an intelligence that had always functioned as one. The impossible happened. The swarm began hesitating. Minutes passed between coordinated movements. Then hours. Momentum disappeared. Every delay allowed another human strike. Every strike created greater hesitation. Coalition fleets cautiously advanced behind humanity's offensive, entering systems that had seemed permanently lost. They found drifting wreckage stretching across millions of kilometers. Not battles. Executions. The balance of power had not shifted. It had inverted completely. Reports flooded coalition headquarters. Enemy production worlds destroyed. Biological processing hubs eliminated. Supply reserves collapsing. Expansion halted across every front. For the first time since the war began, the map of civilized space stopped shrinking. Then, it started growing again. System after system returned to coalition control. Refugee convoys reversed course. Evacuation orders became liberation announcements. Civilizations that had prepared for extinction witnessed something none believed possible. The swarm was retreating. Not strategically. Not temporarily. It was fleeing. Inside Earth's command center, nobody applauded. The commander reviewed updated casualty projections before issuing another series of precise orders. Every surviving swarm fleet was tracked. Every possible escape vector calculated. Every remaining reserve identified. Admiral Karin finally understood the old warning. Humanity did not fight until the enemy became weaker. Humanity fought until resistance itself became irrational. Then every display throughout coalition headquarters changed simultaneously. A single transmission forced its way through every military frequency. It did not contain attack coordinates. It did not contain tactical data. For the first time since the invasion had begun, the swarm was trying to speak. Every military frequency across the galaxy carried the same transmission. It interrupted fleet communications, civilian broadcasts, emergency channels. Even isolated research stations received it simultaneously. For the first time since the invasion began, the swarm did not send attack vectors or biological commands. It sent words. The translation system struggled for several seconds before producing coherent language. "We understand," the message repeated. "We understand suffering." Another pause followed. "We surrender." Silence spread through every coalition command center. No one had prepared for this. For years the swarm had acted like an unstoppable force of nature. Now it sounded frightened. The transmission continued. "We withdraw from all occupied systems. We will never return. Cease your attack. The final sentence echoed throughout known space. We ask for mercy. Billions celebrated before the message even ended. Refugee ships erupted into cheers. Cities that had survived years beneath constant evacuation orders filled with people embracing strangers. Military crews cried openly. Religious leaders declared miracles. Across hundreds of worlds, governments announced the end of the greatest war in history. The celebrations lasted exactly 6 minutes. Then Earth's High Command answered. The response contained only one speaker. No dramatic music. No triumphant declaration. Just the calm voice of the Supreme Commander. Your request has been received. Hope spread once more. Then the commander continued. It is denied. Celebration turned into stunned silence. The commander spoke with the same measured tone used throughout the campaign. You are not a nation seeking peace. You are not an army defending territory. You are an extinction-level organism. You consume civilizations. You erase every form of life you encounter. You have demonstrated repeatedly that coexistence is impossible. A brief pause followed. The purpose of this campaign was never to force your surrender. It was to ensure you could never threaten another civilization again. The swarm answered almost immediately. We retreat. We learn. We change. Human analysts confirmed the message carried genuine biological distress. The swarm had evolved once again. This time it had evolved fear. For many coalition leaders, that was enough. Emergency meetings began within minutes. Several governments contacted Earth directly. They argued that the objective had been achieved. The invasion had ended. The enemy wanted peace. Further destruction was unnecessary. Others warned that continuing the offensive would stain the coalition forever. Admiral Karin listened as countless leaders pleaded for restraint. He understood them. After years of unimaginable loss, everyone desperately wanted the nightmare to end. The commander listened without interruption. When every representative had finished speaking, he asked a single question. If we stop today, who guarantees they will never return? No one answered. The commander continued. They adapted to every weapon. They adapted to every strategy. They adapted to every defeat. Now they have adapted to fear. He looked across the assembled coalition representatives. Fear is not morality. It is survival. If survival demands conquest again, they will conquer again. The room fell silent. Human intelligence officers projected fresh simulations. Every scenario allowing surviving hive clusters eventually reached the same conclusion. Recovery. Expansion. Another invasion. Different tactics. Greater numbers. More deaths. The commander closed the presentation. We will not leave that future to your descendants. The final phase began immediately. Human fleets accelerated beyond every retreating swarm formation. Escape corridors collapsed one after another. Hidden hive worlds concealed inside dark nebulae were located and destroyed. Deep space breeding clusters vanished beneath coordinated strikes before they could relocate. Automated hunter drones pursued isolated biological vessels across intergalactic voids where no conventional fleet would have bothered searching. Nothing was ignored. Nothing was left unfinished. Coalition observers watched with mixed emotions. Many struggled to witness the systematic elimination of an enemy that had already begged for mercy. Others remembered the ghost worlds. The empty cities. The silent oceans. The trillions who would never speak again. Admiral Karin remembered the first fortress. 17 minutes. 8 centuries erased. He understood why humanity refused to stop. Months passed. Then another report arrived. No active hive detected. Search operations continued. Weeks later. Another report. No biological activity confirmed. Then another. No surviving command structures. Human search fleets expanded farther into unexplored space than any civilization had previously traveled. Every suspected refuge was investigated. Every dormant organism destroyed before awakening. Every hidden reserve eliminated. Finally, after nearly a year of relentless pursuit, Earth's command network issued its final operational update. All verified swarm biomass has been neutralized. No victory speech followed. No declaration of glory. The campaign simply ended. Across the galaxy, reconstruction began. Trade routes reopened. Shipyards that had built only warships returned to